Pete, good to see you. Thanks for coming back.
Mike, what's happening, man?
We were talking offline, and you were saying, sometimes things get heavy, and both of us were sharing our stories of doing this, independently, which you've been doing longer than I have. And I don't know about you, but people will say, when the other day, they're like, "Is that all you do for a living?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And I get that they can't grasp that. Like they think that you just sit around all day and do nothing, and but I work all the time. You work all the time, and this stuff gets very very heavy. And I don't know. I people I don't think they understand the stuff that we're talking about, the stuff we're reading, watching, listening. It takes a toll on you.
I mean, I probably record 20, 25 hours a week. I do all my own editing. That's another 20 hours, 25 hours. Then all the reading I have to do for it. Um, you know, one of the things that most people don't take into consideration is, and I think a lot of people are, yeah, I'm a different person than other people. When I watch horrific stuff that's happening around the world, like like the stuff that happened in Gaza, um, especially when it was at its height, I would force myself to watch those videos. And that's not something that I think most people should be watching. And my wife knows how I get after I watch those videos where I have to be left alone and I have to just deal with it. And I watch that stuff so that I watch some of the worst stuff in the world and read about some of the worst things that have ever happened because I have to be able to convey and warn, convey that message that this is the world we live in and warn people about it. And I want to know as much about it as possible. And I'm not one of these. I've never been. I was never in the military, so I've never been to war. I have seen somebody die in front of me from an accident, getting hit by a bus. I was very young when that happened, but for the most part, I'm not dealing in death. And when you start doing what we do, you start dealing in death, and to ignore it is kind of impossible. If you want to be honest with people and you want to be, I don't consider myself a journalist or a newscaster or anything. I consider myself just more of a, I guess at this point, a storyteller. And you have to be able to tell stories that are absolutely insane and horrible. So yeah, we need to, if you do what we do, you need to shut it off every once in a while. And I'll shut it off for days on end. That's why you normally, when my Substack people will get a message that I'm not going to be putting anything like doing my Substack messages, because outside of putting episodes on Substack that people can hear my stuff without ads and without even introductions and everything. It's just the conversation. I record messages, and every once in a while I just have to. If you get a message through Substack saying, "Hey, I'm not going to be recording anything," I need to shut it down for a few days. And it's also really hard for me to shut it down because it's like I'm not going to do anything. I don't want to sit there and try and drink it away because that doesn't help it at all. So you try to just occupy yourself with, like, to me, stuff around the house, or you know try to get together with friends. Yeah, I mean, I'm lucky enough that this will be July will be my third year of doing this full time, and I do that at the pleasure of the people who send me money to do it every month, and I consider myself to be working for them. But even so, you still need to take a vacation, even though this is what I do. This is what I've come to believe that I was created to do. But you still have to be able to shut it down every once in a while, or else it will consume you. And If usually when you see me, if I get on some shows and I start screaming, or if I'm screaming on my Substack morning message, yeah, I need to take a break because it's not normally what I do. You know, it's a, and I can scream for hyperbole's sake, but sometimes I'm being really serious and everything, and then it's like, okay, time to take a break for a few days and just disconnect from this and maybe pick up a book that doesn't have stuff in it that's so horrifying that you feel like you have to talk about it. So yeah, I mean that's basically what it is you have to shut it off every once in a while. You know, I listen to I don't listen to every one of your episodes, but I listen to a lot of them. And I mean I can, you know, you talk about a lot of subjects too that you probably can bother you and you want to shut down and run away from for at least a little while.
Yeah, you know, Gonzalo Lira's name has been circulating around again for the last couple of days, and I don't even know if I told you this. The last podcast he did was on my show back in April of
Wow.
23, and you know, I didn't know at the time. We recorded on a Saturday, and I talked to him for like an hour and 45 minutes. And then that Monday morning, I published it, and I was like, "That's weird. He's not retweeting it." And I saw later in the afternoon that I don't know, Citizen Free Press or Zero Hedge or something, that he had been arrested, and I saw the video of, you know, the Ukrainian whatever the hell they are with their long rifles and him being cuffed, and that was it. I know he got out for a brief stint, but yeah, the last interview he did was on my show, and I've referenced that a lot where you know, they killed, you know, he died. I mean, we left him, the United States, we left him in there, and, you know, the Ukrainian government killed him. And I mean, talking about it right now, I can't believe it. And if you don't think that has an effect on you, it's like people don't understand, like, what's going on in the world and how, you know, just some of the horrible things that come along with it.
Yeah, it's hard for me to see people promoting, um, like defending and saying that Ukraine are the victims when I know what what a murderous regime that is. You know, we have a murderous regime. You know, we've had a murderous regime here for 80 years, but you know, we haven't. Oh, you know, if we had well, think about it this way. So we have all these enclaves of Mexicans, you know, California, Texas, all throughout the country, really. You know, if we just, if we had like a state-sponsored militia that just started bombing and killing thousands of them on American soil, I mean, would we be the good? Would we be the good guys? When it would be just easy enough to just go in there if you want to get rid of them and um, put them on a bus or a train and you know, and get them out of the country. Um, would we be the good guys if you know, we sponsored just a mass slaughter of 14, you know, 14, anywhere between, I've heard numbers 14 to 30,000, you know, ethnic Russians in you know, in Ukraine, which arguably isn't even a real country. So, you know, I, the whole Ukraine thing, the whole NAFO op online, I really, you know, I've really come to believe that there are people that just need to be made examples of because Ukraine is bad enough. I mean, their sons are being kidnapped. Ukrainian sons are being kidnapped off the streets and sent to the front to die while their parents try to go to church and are beaten up for going to the wrong church. And they're told if they want to go to church, they have to go to the church that Victoria Newland founded in 2014, which was just a state-sponsored church of the American, you know, the Judeo-American Empire's regime. And yeah, so I remember when Gonzalo, when it came out that he died, that was, you know, there are Americans who are still defending that, still defending Ukraine, still saying, calling them a democracy, still saying Zelensky's a hero. Now, if you're ignorant and you're doing that, it's one thing. If you know the truth, if I tell you the truth and everything that just came out of my mouth is truth, and you still support them, we have to remember that the founders of this country talked about enemies foreign and domestic, and we have a lot that are domestic.
Yeah, I should say I should send you that conversation, man, because when you listen to it now and you hear him, it's just so disturbing knowing that 2 days later he was gone, arrested. I mean, not dead, but and just some of the things he said, and just not leaving Ukraine, and I don't know, even just talking about it right now, it's just like kind of it's bringing it all back, and you're just like, oh, fuck, like.
Well, I mean, not to do the whole boomer thing of imagine if the roles were reversed, but if it had been Russia, we have we have American citizens who go into Russia and break their laws, and then get thrown in jail, they're horrified, and Americans are outraged. An American goes over to Ukraine to try to expose the truth of what's really going on, and the regime there, kidnaps them and doesn't even throw them in jail, just kills them. Not a peep. Not a peep. Yeah. I mean, I really, at this point, I'm. If Zelensky were to go out, I would like to see Zelensky go out the way Gaddafi did. Yeah, that would be. It wouldn't make everything better, but it'd be somewhat satisfying.
Isn't he supposed to be going to D.C. on Friday? That was a rumor circulating around.
Is he? I haven't heard that one. No.
Yeah, Trump was talking about that because I don't know how close they are to getting this thing resolved. You don't know what, it's always been the story. You don't know what to believe, what you're reading right now. But I mean, I've seen indicators that, the Ukraine is going to sign over the minerals, but yet Trump was still talking about providing them money and equipment for what they need. But then there's talks of possibly a ceasefire, but I don't know how close that is.
Well, it's hard to know, and I think if the reason why the signals are distorted is on purpose, I think that's a good thing. You don't want to telegraph to certain people what exactly is happening. The whole minerals thing is hilarious to me because it's like those are raw. They're still in earth. I mean, I've read numbers saying that whatever number is being thrown around, consider it to be about 13%, because 87% will go towards the labor and machinery and getting that out of the ground. So if you hear, $1 trillion worth, it's really like $130 billion worth. So, yeah, I don't know what's going on there. It may just be one of those really weird Trump negotiating tactics. And, I don't know. It's hard to know what to believe. I mean, I saw one account saying that the war was over yesterday, that Zelensky had agreed to all of that Zelensky and Putin had agreed to all the things. Well, I mean, I don't know. I don't know what to believe. But yeah, I mean, I just want the thing to be over. It's just so stupid. And, knowing that it was basically started and orchestrated because ethnic groups in this country who have historic ties to Ukraine and Russia hate Ukrainians and Russians and want to see them kill each other. Well, they got their wish, So, hopefully one day those people will be brought to justice too. The Victoria Newlands and the Robert Kagans and the Alexander Vindmans of the world. These people, they also need justice. And I'm talking about on trial and sent to Gitmo. That I'll be. They can surf Gitmo for the rest of their lives. I'll be happy with that.
Well, you and I haven't spoken since the end of last year. What are your thoughts on what we've seen so far with Trump and this new administration?
Well, I think it's a lot of what what people like myself and Tom Luongo and Matt Erickson and some others thought was going to happen. at least we were hopeful that it was going to happen, was that there was going to be, an attack on the administrative state. Now, I think that you can take down the administrative state in a month, but you're going to have the will to do things that, I'm not talking about killing people. I'm talking about just basically going full bore and eliminating departments, firing people. And I think they're just going too slow with what they're doing. If I had any kind of critique at all, they need to impeach these judges, fire them, do whatever they do. You can go ahead and read what Bukele did in El Salvador when it came to the judges. Yeah, he wasn't going to put up with that, and he just got rid of them. I mean, he pulled them off the bench and sent them packing. That's what needs to be done here. And maybe maybe this is, maybe you just can't do all this at once. Maybe it's really hard to do a lot of the things that you want to do at once, and you're getting all your ducks in a row. This is what the 19-year-old autists with laptops and AI are doing. They're combing through and finding the skeletons, finding the numbers. But, I mean, if Trump would have pardoned the J6 prisoners and, went after USAID, that would be more than most people would have thought that he would have ever accomplished or ever would have done. So at this point, I think anything that happens after this is a win, as far as scaling back government. I was listening to the press conference he did at his cabinet meeting today, and Musk said that the goal was to cut $4 billion a day from the deficit to make it $1 trillion by the midterms. I mean, if he's able to do that, that's a lot. But, you also have to start looking at the budget. You also have to start looking at generating income, which I think that's what the Sovereign Wealth Fund is about. A lot of gold seems to be pouring into the United States. The city of London seems to be, Tom Luongo, according to him, he's the City of London expert, they're floundering right now, and they would be our chief enemy when it comes to finance and a lot of other things. They're also what keeps Israel afloat, more so than us, actually. And so, I think good things are happening. They're just not happening fast enough for most people. But when I'm not an expert on like an economic and administrative state coup d'état, on how you would. I've read the book Coup d'état by Lutwak, read it on my show. I know what a coup d'état looks like, from a certain aspect, but this is something that we haven't seen before because we're not talking about Sierra Leone. We're talking about the United States, the biggest bureaucracy of all time. So I'm hopeful in a lot of the rhetoric I've heard and a lot of the stuff that I've seen happen. I think something that a lot of people aren't taking into consideration because they don't pay attention to local and state politics is here in Alabama. I'm seeing, the shit lib rags, crying because, state and local positions are being eliminated. Why? Well, why is that? Well, apparently they're being funded federally. Well, they're going away. And so, when people are like, not enough is happening for me, then, take into consideration there's a lot you're probably not seeing. It's like with the deportations. I know Eric Prince has offered to have deport, I think he said 15 million by the midterms for 25 billion, for a payment of $25 billion. But I also think that from things that I've heard from multiple regions of the country, the amount of self deportations that's happening is pretty remarkable too. People are just picking up and leaving. So yeah, I don't know. I think that I'm happy, and I didn't think I thought there was a chance we could see a lot of what was happening happen and being called for and being moved upon. But I'm happy to see a lot of it's happening. A lot of it is happening. But I mean, I know that there's people out there too that are either not going to be happy with anything but the perfect, and are always going to see an ulterior motive. And a surveillance state is coming, and a panopticon is coming. They keep keep people donating money to Whitney Webb.
I yeah, I mean, I never thought. I mean, well, you and I spoke about it. I didn't think he would win, and I didn't. I mean,
Oh, I know. We've talked about this.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and I've
Like,
apologized to every listener that emailed me asking for, I mean, fuck, I say it again. I was wrong. I was wrong. Don't listen to me. Listen to the
dude,
guests. Listen to the guests I have on. Don't listen to me.
those of us, those of us who were saying he was going to win, and not only that he was going to win, that we would know.
You called it early. You called it real early. Yeah.
That you would know that night before you went to sleep, and I think we knew at 3 o'clock in the morning. So, and I was still awake because we were live streaming. And those of us who said that he was gonna, go after USA, go after a lot of these deep state institutions. In the back of our mind, we're going, yeah, this ain't gonna happen. But you weigh it. So it's like, okay, I thought 60% it was going to happen, 40% it's not going to happen. But I don't like to be one of those people who's like, I think it's going to happen, but I mean, shit or get off the pot. Take a stand every once in a while and make a prediction. And you have the mea culpas are fun. You can just hey, I'm sorry, I was wrong on this one. I've been wrong on a lot. I mean, I've whatever. I'm human. At least I'm willing to take a stand and say this is what I want, and this is what I think is going to happen, or this is what I hope is going to happen. A lot of people don't even want to hear you. A lot of people will like malign you for saying that you have hope that something is going to happen. Oh, how can you have hope? That's not hope. That's cope. Okay, well, I mean, that's fine. But my life is fine, and a lot of the predictions we started making back in the beginning of last year, especially around January of 2024, have come true. And I think it's only because a few of us were trying to come at this from a standpoint of complete neutrality. Now, when you're trying to figure out what's coming, you have to be able to put aside your biases, put aside your ideology. If you have a personal ideology, if you have a political ideology, if you put it aside, which is what most people can't do, especially like mainstream media, that's why the mainstream media is dying. You put aside your ideology and you just look at the facts, and you're like, okay, what am I seeing? What am I seeing? Okay. And when I'm looking at something and I'm looking at the people who are backing Trump and the people who are saying we're going to support Trump, if I throw away all of the conspiracy shit that you can come up with when you're like, holy crap, that person works in tech. That means that AI is he wants to put a chip in our brain, or AI in our, if you could put all that stuff aside and just look at what reality is and what's in front of your eyes, you can see things you can actually predict reality. The problem is that people are so swamped in ideology, in their own ideology, that they allow that to basically possess them. And then it's hard to look at the actual reality that's happening, and where you can take pieces of evidence from here and there and there, and you put them together and you're like, looks like this is what's going to happen. I'm not saying this is the greatest thing in the world that's going to happen. I'm not even going to say it's going to benefit you, but this is what's going to happen. And it's really weird that now when you report on the world, or you do a commentary on the world that way, people are like, oh, you want that to happen. I'm like, I didn't say I wanted that to happen. I'm just saying that's what's happening. And because people have been basically brainwashed into being so ideological that you have to have an ideology, and this is the work of James Burnham and Sam Francis is ideology doesn't matter to people in power. Yes, they have an ideology, but they can change it if they see something's not working, they'll just discard it. Ideology keeps people blind and it keeps people miserable too. I mean, I see people online that are like, well, we're not getting everything we want out of Trump. Okay. Well, we're not going to be happy until we get everything you want. Okay, then you're a child. You just said you're not going to be happy until you get everything that you want. Well, you're just calling me names. No, you're acting like a petulant child. And you're also showing a certain ignorance in politics. Nobody ever gets everything they want. There are negotiations going on right now. Putin is not going to get everything he wants. Donald Trump's not going to get everything he wants. Israel is not going to get. They all operate on with the framework that you're not going to get everything you want. But then someone on Twitter, who's too scared to use their real name is going to be telling you, and I'm not telling you have to dox yourself. I understand that, people want to stay safe, and believe me, I understand that. But I mean, who are you to say that I'm only going to get, okay, rape groiper 14, you demand to get everything you want. Okay, so you're a child. And when I call you a child, you're like, oh, well, that's just name calling. But you're acting like a child. Children are the only people who think they're going to get everything that they want, or grifters. That's what I figured out a long time ago. The word grifter only applies to a certain group. It applies to a certain group that is advertising something that will never materialize. Like your perfect political ideology, your perfect situation. And if you have a person who is doing that and they're saying, this is the only way we're going to be able to survive, you have to destroy the Christian church. That's the only way you're going to get the only thing that's keeping Jewish power going is the Christian church. So we have to destroy Christianity. The person who's telling you that is a grifter, because that's never going to happen. The person who's telling you everything will be perfect as long as we destroy the government. The government is the source of all of our ills. The only way we can have anything good in this world is we have to get rid of the government. We have to convince people that we have to get rid of the government and live in anarchy. That's a grifter. That's how you notice a grifter. And these are the people that, seeing what Trump's doing. And like I said, I would like to see things go faster, but I'm not on the inside either. I don't know what's going on. I don't know what's going on in his inner circle. I don't know what the plans, I don't know what the plan is, so I can trust the plan, bro. So, but yeah. Well, there's my rant for the show, Michael.
Pete, you're acting like a child. You want things to go faster.
I know. I'm acting like a child. I'm saying you have to live in the real world and be completely realistic and not expect to get everything you want. And I'm acting like a child. Oh my God.
I'm surprised that you let it get that far with on X posting. If somebody's posting that to you, usually you just block those people.
They don't even really post it to me anymore. I just see it. You just witness it. Have you ever come across, maybe you're not because you're a really nice guy, but you come across people you've never interacted with before who've blocked you? Well, no. The reason they blocked you is because this happens all the time. I'll come across an account and they blocked me and I'm like, I have no idea who this person is. They're not on my side of Twitter. They've seen me interacting with somebody and they've just decided to block me. I've done that too. I've done that with people too. I see the way they're interacting and I see the conversation they're having and I see the way their words are. And I'm like, this person has nothing for me. And actually, I want to make sure I don't interact with them ever, so that it's not exposing it to my people because it might be so cancerous. So I'll just preemptively block them. But, mostly I see these conversations happening on Twitter where it's like, we have to get everything we want or else we're not going to be happy. And I'm just like, all right, well, you're a child and I don't want anything to do with you. Block.
Yeah, I think the most criticism I'm getting is if my language, if I'm swearing, which I think is funny. I swear, it's hilarious to me.
That happens every once in a while with me too. And I understand it, but I grew up in New York and we use the F word as a comma. I mean, so it just comes out every once in a while. And people are like, well, aren't you supposed to be a Christian? It's like, yeah, I'm also human. I mean, yeah.
I read an email that I got, and there was, the word fuck was in it a couple of times. And I said it because I was quoting the email, and, somebody was like, did you really need to use the language? I'm like, you know what? I've had it with this type of, I mean, I don't run a Disney show here.
Yeah, I mean, you have former Navy SEALs on. You have people, who, I mean, these swearing is a commodity to them. Yeah, it's a currency to them. It's something that they use. I'm not going to shut people up. I have an episode with the comedian Leonardo Joni coming out. And I mean, she's just a foul mouthed woman from the Bronx. Like I'm a foul mouthed dude from the Bronx too. And she I noticed when we started talking, she was curbing. She went to say fuck and she stopped. And I'm like, oh no, you can say that. I'm not. I have a rule that you come into my house, you follow my rules. I'm not going to ask someone to be something that they're not. I invited them on for a reason because I know what they are. I'm not going to ask somebody to be something different.
Yeah, I just discovered her through you and listening to some of her stuff. She's funny.
Yeah, she's hilarious. And the reason she's hilarious is because she's honest. And that's something that I brought up with her was that it seems like comedy in the last 10 years has been about getting applause and not laughs. Oh, stunning and brave. Oh my God. Oh, that comedian said something so stunning and brave about trans people needing to be protected from evil Nazis that are roaming the countryside and everything like that. And it's like, I mean, I want to laugh. I mean, I don't want to be insulted. I don't want to be preached at for my comedy. If I put a comedian on, I want to laugh. I mean, there can be some political in there, but I appreciate the political comedy that shows the absurdity of politics. Not where you're just like like what Bill Burr's turned into that cuck. He's always been sort of a shit lib, but at least he was funny. At least he could be funny, and you could overlook the kind of anti-gun stance he had on some of his jokes, and even the anti-gun jokes had some humor to them, everything. But now he's just I mean, well, consider who his wife is, so whatever.
You think Hollywood will ever get back to what it was before all this? I was just talking about some people about Marvel movie. I didn't see the new Captain America because I just heard it was awful. And I read a review. They said even Harrison Ford can't save this, which is amazing to me. At 82 years old, this guy he must really need the money that he's still doing all this. But and like there's a Superman coming out this summer, and I think I've come to terms with it. These movies just aren't made for people my age. Maybe that's what it is.
It's the way they're shot and put together. So
you think that's what it is?
Luongo talks about this, the Zack Snyder cut of Justice League. So the Justice League that came out in the theater was just crap.
Terrible.
I mean, it was just it was pablum. So Zack Snyder went in and did a 4-hour long cut of his own, and it's amazing. It's amazing. Luongo talks about how these movies are shot to be good. Then they get in the hands of editors and everything, and then they can turn them into anything. So Zack Snyder's cut of, of Justice League is really good. If you have 4 hours, I watched it over 2 days, but It's really good. There's going to be some cringe in there, but not a lot. Like Batman, the Robert Pattinson Batman. There was like two lines in there that made me cringe, but for the most part, I thought they were pretty good. But DC is always, I always liked DC better than Marvel because DC is just a darker universe, and I have a darker soul, you know. So
Wait, I'll go see Superman. I wasn't blown away in the trailer, but it also I have to take into account it's a trailer. So
yeah, I mean, you don't know you don't know what they're doing in a trailer. I mean, how many times have you seen a trailer and then you gone to see the movie and there are scenes in the trailer that aren't in the movie? So yeah, I mean, I just don't watch a lot of movies anymore. It's not that I don't want to. There are some movies that people recommend to me, and I'm like, oh, I gotta watch that. But then I just don't have time. And if I do have the time, it's late at night. And if I start watching a movie late at night, 15 minutes in, my eyes are gonna start closing.
right.
So that's one of the problems of getting old.
Don't you feel like somebody said this? Somebody said this to me, and I've been saying it. It's almost like we're living in a DC comic book right now with these characters that Trump's team has formed. Like,
Well,
and I'm not saying that in a negative way, but these people are really like they're like characters out of a comic book, and they're all so good on a microphone. They all have very witty responses, not witty, but they have good mouths on them.
well, I'm not saying that this is a good thing because I think she was actually a detestable person, but a lot of them are right out of an Ayn Rand novel. Like these titans of industry that are, all they care about is progress and, you know, and the bureaucrat is there to stifle them. And yeah, I mean, I see a lot. I see some of that in the way certain people are being propped up. As far as Elon Musk would be an obvious one. I mean, he's not a Howard Rourke character or anything like that, but I mean, he would sort of be somebody that Rand may have written about, someone like that, something like that. Litnick too is another one who he seems like he could be out of a Rand novel, but that's a little bit more what I see. I think the really is just how some of the villains that are being presented are just out of comic books, really. Whether it be, I mean, look at Dan Crenshaw. He's got a fucking eye patch. I mean, how perfect? How perfect is that? Then you have Mitch McConnell, who's a doddering old fool who still is somehow still wields power. And then you have this whole thing about who's running the NSA under under Biden, but a bunch of trans furry piss party disgusting really should be not allowed to be in public or should be embarrassed to go into public kind of people. I mean, these are all basically and the problem, the only difference is in a lot of the comic books, at least the villains are somewhat charismatic. These people aren't even charismatic.
I mean,
Lex Luthor. I mean, the first time you saw Superman, the Christopher Reeve first Superman, Gene Hackman is Lex Luthor. There had to be a part of you that was rooting for him.
Yeah, and even not that you would root for the Joker, but the Heath Ledger version, you could understand the darkness of him.
Yeah, if you're under 21 years old or you've never had a mortgage, you identify with Batman. You get a little bit older and you start paying bills, and you're like, this Joker guy's making a lot of sense here.
And that would be both the Heath Ledger and the Joaquin Phoenix one.
For sure. Well, I mean, I much more identify with the Heath Ledger one because I mean it was just pure nihilism and being Gen X. I mean, what if you're Gen X? What else are you other than just a closet nihilist of some sort?
The way you put it with the villains, Dan Crenshaw. I mean, would he get caught on a hot mic? Or it wasn't even a hot mic. He said he was going to shoot Tucker Carlson.
Yeah, he wanted to kill Tucker. If he met Tucker Carlson, he'd kill him. And Tucker did the right thing. Hey, come on my show. Because Crenshaw doesn't mean it. He's an impotent fool who's doing the bidding of other people. He's just a mouthpiece for whoever pays him and funds him. Um, but yeah, like I was saying, they're not even charismatic. At least whether it's Mr. Freeze or the Penguin or so, these are charismatic villains. We expect the villain to be, um, because if you grew up in a comic book world, you expect the villain to be somewhat, likable. These people aren't even likable; they're detestable. So it's like, and it was like Tucker Carlson said years ago about elites. He's like, I don't mind elites. I just want impressive elites. Even elites that you didn't agree with, they could be somewhat impressive in the past, and oppressive, but they could be somewhat impressive in the past. Now they're just not. There's nothing to admire about them at all.
Yeah, McConnell. I mean, he can't walk 100 feet and he falls, or he doesn't know where he's at.
I mean, Nancy Pelosi. These are, wow, who are these people? How did they? uh, You really get the idea that you have to be willing to sell your soul completely and utterly in order to be able to get into positions like that. I mean, look at Joe Biden. I mean, uh, I, I get, I have this irrational anger towards people who blame the last 4 years on Joe Biden when he obviously wasn't in charge. It's like, I mean, I think Barack Obama probably made some decisions on his own, but I mean, he was another one who was just, you know, owned by the same people who've owned all these people. So he seems to be a little more open about his hostility to Netanyahu, but he still did the Syria thing and the surge in Afghanistan. He's just doing what his people told him to do. Now, Donald Trump may be doing, is, I'm not going to say maybe, is doing what the people who are around him are telling him what to do. You just have to hope that the people who are around him line up with your values more than the people who have in the past and the people who are being shut out. And hopefully, I put out a tweet this morning. I said, defunding these people, defunding the regime apparatchiks is perfectly fine. But they've been stealing millions and billions for years. They have war chests, they have money squirreled away. You have to go after them and you have to take that away from them. I don't care what that sounds like. They have to be utterly destroyed. And that starts with destroying them monetarily and making sure they can never take power again. Because all this work that's being done, even if you are dismantling the deep state, even if you see, the ATF disappear or the FBI become just basically a police force, and where you see the CIA just whatever, even if they become things that you're okay with, that you're like, okay, that's the amount of power I think they should have. If Trump loses in 20, if or Trump's successor loses in 2028, and you get a regime apparatchik that comes back into power, these are people who still have, and you haven't taken away the money that funds them. I mean, they're going to come back with a vengeance. Yeah, and I've taken to saying on some of my Substacks, this isn't going to be like them, like the J6 people who, they threw in cells. They're going to kill you. They're going to kill people. They're going to get revenge upon people. Remember, whoever wrote that speech for Biden that he spoke in Philadelphia, a third of the country was semi-fascist. And that's the way they think. And with everything they're crying over now, do you think if they ever get power again, that things are going to be better or probably or equal to what you saw from 2020 to 2024? Oh, it's going to be exponentially worse. And it's going to be like, targeting of enemies like on a Spanish Civil War level, where they're just going to kill people. And for people who don't believe that, they do not understand what the ideology that possesses these people is. You know, this someone would call it leftism, but this progressivism, this like, I mean, it's a book called Demon and Democracy by Ryszard Legutko. I've read it on my show. He shows just how close communism and liberalism is. I mean, they are just kissing cousins. These people are, unless they're utterly destroyed now, that they can never come back. If they come back and they have resources and access to resources, and things haven't been completely restructured that they can't use these resources to their advantage again, we're in trouble, man. We're in trouble.
You know, that's it feels like we're there's a civil war going on right now with the elites, right? And I've used this reference WEF 2.0 with Elon and all the big tech people, but you know, they're trying to now with Trump, all these executive orders, annihilate the other side. So my question is, that I asked myself, and I'm going to ask you, the other side right now, do they just wait this out, stay in the bunker, wait till 28, or how do they respond? Because this will go back and forth until people start dying, in my opinion. So what do? They stay in retreat mode right now? Because what Trump is doing, in my opinion, there's such a flurry right now that the other side, they just can't keep up. Like they can't respond. They can't keep up with the pace that they're moving.
Well, think about it as a boxing match. I've never been a big UFC guy just because I haven't been exposed enough to the UFC. But I mean, when I was growing up, I was a big boxing guy. Boxing guy.
We've talked about that, right?
Yeah, I think so.
I love boxing. I used to watch Manny Pacquiao train and all. Tell you all that.
Yeah. That's right. You told me that. Yeah. But boxing, what is, especially when you get into the lighter weights, a lot of it is just flurry after flurry after flurry, and you're looking for the knock. You're looking for your spot. You're wearing them down, or you're just hitting them with so much at once that you're putting them off balance, and you're looking for that one shot. Hopefully that's what this is. Hopefully this flurry is just, and I think it does. In my opinion, they're off balance right now, that the regime apparatchiks don't know what to do, because I believe a lot of them have stored wealth. But it only goes so far unless you can control levers of power to use it. What I'm hoping is that this flurry is leading to a knockout blow. What that knockout blow looks like, I'm not going to venture a guess, because then you start getting into Fed posting territory, and I'm not going to do that. But
what's Fed posting territory, Pete?
Fed posting is when if you ever see people online going, what we need to do is we need to take up arms and overthrow the government. That would be like something a Fed would, like if you have a group, we'll put it this way, say you have a group of people and you get together and you talk about politics and you go fishing. And then you add a new guy to the group, and the new guy is like, hey, you know what we should do? We should start really practicing with guns and with weapons, and that mayor is really giving us a lot of problems. We should do something about it. The assumption is that guy's the Fed. That guy was sent in there to infiltrate and to try to get you to commit violence. And saying that you want this person dead or that person dead is like, that would be considered Fed posting, where you're calling for violence, or you're looking for violence, or you're calling people to commit violence. But these people need to pay, and I'm not saying they need to be killed. I'm not saying examples need to be made. You need to have, you need to start building gallows. But people need to, you need to see people frog marched. You need to see people in front of a judge, and you need to see people going to jail. And if you're not going to completely go after these people's wealth, completely tear down their systems, and make sure that you just target individuals, and you're like, this person can never hold an elected office, they can't start an NGO, they can't start a nonprofit, they can't even start a company, then you have to look at how you go forward, because these people, they're never going to stop. It's never going to end. And that's the one thing that people don't want to hear about politics, is that politics is eternal, that you can never sleep on it. When you think you've won, that's when you've lost, because you're going to sit back. You're going to stop gatekeeping. You're going to think, oh, we need to let some maybe everything's good now. Look how flush we are. The government's no longer in debt. We have a surplus. We need to start taking care of people, and let's start an organization to figure out, let's start a government program to figure out how to, no, that's where it begins. These people have to be utterly destroyed. The government just needs to become an organization that protects the people and issues checks to people who deserve them, and exactly where they're going. And that's it. I mean, if Andrew Yang was right about one thing, the best thing the government is good at is handing out checks. You just have to know. You have to make sure they're not Social Security checks for people who are 200 years old. So you have to, these people. I'll just reiterate: these people need to be destroyed, or else the future is not good. They're going to come back with a vengeance, and they're going to come back someday anyway. That's just the way the world works. And you're just going to have to be ready for it. You're going to have to have at least re-engineered the structure of power so that they can't just step in and automatically start doing things as business as usual. Hopefully you put some checks and balances in there, but we're also dealing with humans, so humans are imperfect. So, you just really do the best you can do.
Do you think they wait this out then? Wait this flurry out? Almost like, did you ever see When We Were Kings? The Ollie Foreman documentary?
No. I want to, but no.
It's fantastic.
I think that's is that the documentary about the fight in Manila?
No, Zaire. It was the Rumble in the Jungle
fight?
with
Okay.
Foreman.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
If you've never seen it, I was actually fortunate to meet the director when I was in LA watching Pacquiao train 15 years ago now. But, if you know the premise of the rope-a-dope, Ali just held on the ropes and let Foreman punch himself out. So in this case, right, do you think the other side is 28 in their view, or even 26, the midterm, that they start to strike back, that maybe the Trump administration will be like a Foreman and have punched themselves out? I'm not saying it's going to happen, but is that the strategy if you're them?
Possibly. I don't know if 26 is the midterms, is depending on what Trump does. Now, Luongo thinks that he's going to work on getting rid of the income tax by the midterms. If he gets rid of the income tax by the midterms, he'll have supermajorities in the House and Senate. They're going to come back at some point. I don't know. When you look at the way people are reacting to this, that it's a very small minority that are really screaming that this is unfair. And you see that, like, RFK gets pushed through, and Tulsi gets pushed through, and Kash Patel gets pushed through. Kash Patel said he wants to end the FBI, and he gets pushed through. Maybe, just maybe, they're sitting it out, and they're just going to bide their time. And this would be it would be a good tactic. Actually, a really good tactic from the Muslim world. if you know anything about the Iranian Revolution, that was basically planned for, decades because they were just waiting for the proper time. And, when you have well, I don't know. Now I'm thinking about it. It's like, but, Muslims believe in the eternal. These people don't believe in the eternal. They're mostly atheists and they believe everything happens now. Huh. Put it this way. If Trump accomplishes a lot and the country looks like it's getting back together, it's back on its feet, and morale is great, and they lose the midterms despite everything looking their way, then you have to question whether we can even have elections anymore. Because the people are too fucking stupid to be allowed to have a say in it. Because if people 2 years from now want the people from the past 4 years to be back in charge in 2 years, then I would say that voting is done. That people cannot be allowed to vote anymore. And that, quote unquote, democracy is dead. And the only way you're going to go forward and even have a hope of peace is to have a strongman dictator take over and put people in their place. It's just the question is whether it's going to be a left or a right dictator.
What do you think the future? I had Z-Man on over the weekend, and we were talking about.
He'll be on the Old Glory Club live stream tomorrow night.
Oh, is he?
Us. Yeah, it'd be fun.
He's showing his face now too. He's unmasked himself.
Yeah, I've met him a couple times. We've hung out a couple times. So yeah, he's a good guy.
Yeah, I know you guys go way back. Yeah, we were talking about you actually on the show, and but I asked him, what do you think the future is of the Democratic Party as we sit here today? Because the bench doesn't look too deep, man. Like,
well, I mean, I guess there's a lot of questions there. Do they want to keep with the degenerate stuff, with the trans stuff, do they go trad? Is there I'm not talking about Catholic traditionalists or something like that, but they start moving more towards the center and or do they double down on this stuff? Because what you could hope for is that they double down on this stuff. Because if they double down on all of this, then I think that was repudiated in November, and people just don't want it anymore. So maybe you hope that they double down on it. Joy Reid just got fired from MSNBC. Another high profile person was just fired. White guy, I think. I don't remember who it was. If you start seeing these people, they're phasing these people out. And, if you remember, basically CNN and cable news was dead in 2016. The only thing that kept them going was Trump. And really the only thing that kept them going was Russiagate. The Russiagate, it had, now you don't know whether these ratings are real or not, but something like, it was 20 million people were tuning into Rachel Maddow every night, if you believe the numbers or something like that, because of Russiagate. They don't have that anymore. They're trying that now. Oh, people are just ignoring it. People don't care. Rachel, I think I heard that Joyanne Reed's show was getting 40,000 viewers a night on cable news. 40,000. There are podcasts that have more than that. I have friends that have podcasts that get 5 times that amount on every episode. How do you... I don't know if anybody wants to hear this stuff anymore. And I think a big part of it is Twitter. They don't own Twitter anymore. They don't get to control what goes on Twitter anymore. You put up, somebody puts up a a pro-Israel tweet and an anti-Hamas tweet, and there's 10 times more people on there saying fuck Israel. You know, I don't have to like Hamas to say fuck Israel. Fuck all of you. We don't care. We don't want anything to do with it. Fight your war. We don't give a shit. We just don't want anything to do with it. We don't want we don't want a dollar of ours to go toward it. Screw you. And people couldn't say that 5, 6 years ago. You couldn't say that 3 years ago. I mean, I think really the game changer was Musk buying Twitter, because I think a bunch of us figured out a few years ago, that social media we used to say back in 2017, 2018, Twitter is not real life. Twitter may not be real life, but a lot of narratives, even if they're not true narratives, even if they're made up, even if they're serving the purpose of just one group. Yes, I know this. But that's where they start. That's where they propagate. That's where they go. That's where they spread. They also die there. I mean, I just don't know how, if nobody's watching cable news, nobody's tuning into their podcasts, and they can't control, speech on Twitter. And yes, I know that some people have been thrown off of Twitter, and there's still censorship on Twitter. Yeah. That goes back to, we want things the way we want, or else we're going to throw a tantrum. It's still fucking better than it was 5 years ago. And I think as long as it stays that way, I mean, the only way, I'll say this, the only way the left gets power again, or the progressive Nuremberg New Deal regime, these people who've been running the administrative state and their forebearers for all these years get power again, it's by force. I think they're going to have to do it by force. I think people are I think people are fed up with it.
How so by force? So how would you envision? I'm not an FBI agent or whatever, by the way, Pete.
I know.
Before you say that, I had a friend of mine. We became friends, connected through email, and then we started talking on the phone. And I met up with him for dinner a couple of years ago with his son. And he said, this guy, he might be an FBI informant or something. He's like, I have no idea, meaning me. And obviously, I consider you a friend, even though we've never met in person. But it was just funny. I'm like, man, do I fit the FBI profile? I'm 5'5". I'm the most social guy you ever see when you're out and about anywhere I go, like the places I frequent. But it was just kind of funny. Like, I'm like, oh, this is the world we're in now, because you just don't know. But sorry, I cut off your thought.
No, that's yeah. I mean, I just look. They were able to fund many armies to go into the streets in 2020. There are always going to be quote unquote disaffected youth. There are always going to be, and as here's another one. I haven't even talked about getting academia under control. And if you don't get academia under control, especially colleges and universities, this cancer keeps spreading. I think Zoomer guys are a little starting to, see that all that stuff is fake and gay. And they tend to be a little more right wing, even a lot more right wing than myself, in many cases. But it seems like a lot of the girls aren't. A lot of the girls are still susceptible to shit libbery. If you could put an army out on the street in certain towns, you can cause a lot of problems, and you can cause overreactions. And maybe we're creating an environment and a culture that looks at 2020 and looks at Kenosha, Wisconsin, and goes, we shouldn't have had to rely on a 17-year-old to kill pedophiles and wife beaters. Maybe we send the 82nd Airborne in like we did in Los Angeles back in the 90s, and we put this riot down. Maybe the people will be open to that. And maybe when the globalists start screaming about it from other countries, we just lift the middle finger to them and go, "Fuck you! This is the way we do things now." I don't know, man. I think there's a lot of options that people aren't thinking of. People. I think a lot of people think I'm completely white pilled and Pollyanna about everything that Trump's doing. I like a lot of what he's doing. I think a lot of what he's doing is can benefit me personally and can benefit a lot of my people personally, um, from a monetary standpoint, and also getting your ducks in a row, taking the heat off. But
Taking a break from
um,
all the nonsense.
yeah, yeah, taking a break from the nonsense and getting letting people get used to a world without, a culture without the nonsense, and then desiring that and demanding it, and so that the elites look and go, yeah, I mean, it's good for business. This is what we want. Did you see Jeff Bezos? Did you see Jeff Bezos's tweet
Yeah, get rid of, was it
yesterday?
DEI, right? Is that what it was?
Well, yeah, I mean, he's hiring. He's saying the editorial department is going to be about promoting free markets, free markets, and um, getting, well, I mean, like the anti-diversity, anti-DEI stuff and everything like that. I mean, the easiest thing you can do, and you probably should, is look at that and go, well, I mean, what is he doing here? What's he setting you up for? But I think that people like him put their finger up to the wind, see which way it's blowing, and it's like, well, it's blowing in this direction now. Be, I need to be over here. I need to be promoting this. I need to be a little more on the side of this White House because this White House looks like it is going after people like me. Like they would look upon people like me and the way I've operated my business as the enemy up until now. So, I mean, is the Washington Post going to continue to be the mouthpiece for the CIA? I mean, basically, the Washington Post has been what, a CIA op for decades. I don't know, but I think it's interesting to see messages like that being put out by Bezos, by Bezos of all people. I mean, um, but people like Soros haven't changed their tunes. The people, the City of London people haven't changed their tunes. WEF hasn't changed their tune. EU hasn't changed their tune. These people still exist out there. They still wield a lot of power and they still have a lot of influence on the international stage. And that means they have influence in our country. So maybe that's why, the vice president gets sent over there to smack them down and, insult them to their face.
We didn't even talk about Bongino.
I mean, I don't see. I just don't know enough about Dan Bongino. Never really followed him. I know he used to be Secret Service or something like that. And was he NYPD at some point?
I don't know if he's NYPD. I mean, to me, I think the my mom listens to him every day, and so she's always telling me what he's saying. And I have Matt Bracken on here a lot, and he listens to him. But the fact that he's giving up his show because he's got a big audience on Rumble, and he's giving that up. I think he's in a partner in Rumble as well. But so the money that he's going to be, sacrificing in order to do this is what I find just, yeah. I mean, it's fascinating to me. I didn't think he'd, why give up a gig you have for this?
Well, I mean, maybe we're re-entering the age of the people who know how to do something, an expert on something, being recruited into the government. It's not 50 to 75 years ago that someone like Elon Musk would have been tracked down and said, "You're working for the government. You're working for us. We need the best and the brightest minds to work for us." There was a time that happened, and maybe some people are, seeing that. Maybe, that's why Lutnick and what's his name, Witkoff, who's doing the negotiations with Israel and Ukraine and Russia. Maybe that's why they're doing these things. Maybe they're. I'm not saying that they have to have their, your interest at heart, but maybe they're doing it for some kind of patriotic, they feel like is their patriotic duty or something like that. Maybe that's the kind of age we're re-entering, and it could be something we enter out of rather quickly. It used to take forever. It took 40 years to even for a lot of people to even realize that we had an administrative state and that the New Deal basically created that. But we also have only had the internet now since what, 1991, 92. Information travels so much faster now. One of the things that we've talked about on my show before is that in 1998 when I discovered the Institute for Historical Review and doing revisionist history. And I was reading articles and booklets that they had out there talking about the JQ. I mean, that wasn't something you talked about openly. It wasn't something. It was something you and your friends whispered about. You lent him the pamphlet. He read it. Then you had a conversation in private. It's openly being discussed in public now. And sure, I've heard of this stuff about anti-Semitism bills and anti-Semitism executive orders, but if you really look at it, it's trying to crack down on foreign people from outside of the country, students from other places. Sure, it could be used to crack down on people who are talking about it publicly, who may even be on the regime side. But you know, what I'm saying is that I never thought that something like that would be discussed openly. That uh, that someone like Tucker Carlson would have, who has the biggest podcast in the world, would have Daryl Cooper on, and Daryl Cooper would openly question the World War II narrative to the point where like the White House, chastised him and you know basically said that he was wrong. I think in this information age, when all this information is available to us and people are finally figuring out how to use it and how to compile information and use AI, you can put a book into AI now and it'll give you like all the main bullet points where you can just, Ron Unz has done that on his website. Ron Unz, he writes articles anywhere from 6,000, sometimes 20,000 words. And he puts out the audio for it. And I still don't have 2 hours to sit down and listen to it. But he's finally attached on his website to his article. If you look at the article and there's an AI button and you hit the AI button and it gives you an AI synopsis, all the bullet points of the article. You can get so much information so fast now. You can debunk, reports in real time. You see that happen on Twitter all the time, on social media. I just think change can happen a lot fucking faster now. And you still have, I'm not saying that, all of these old networks of power that were seeking to keep the truth away from us or to keep us in bondage to this, to the post-war consensus, the World War II consensus, or the Civil Rights Act consensus, aren't in play, aren't still in play. It certainly seems like they're dying to some extent. Just the fact that you can call a person a retard on Twitter is a lot different.
We didn't even get into the whole AI, the evolution of AI, and how fast that seems to be moving.
Well,
Do you use it? Do you use any of that stuff?
Yeah, I do. But I agree with my friend Charles Haywood. I think that I think it has a cap. I don't believe that AI is capable of doing some of the things that the doomers think it's going to be able to do. I just don't think, maybe sometime in the far future, but there's a big difference between being able to you know, plug a book in and it reads the book for you really quick, or it has stored references to that book where it can give you bullet points. And, you know, managing this gigantic panopticon and it, or, you know, becoming sentient unto itself. It, I'm not buying that at this point. You know, people have to remember something. When someone tells you, especially somebody who's in the AI business, that man, AI can do that, our AI can do this, they're looking for you to send them money. They're looking for people with lots and lots of money. They're overselling the hype so that people will invest with them. This is something that anyone who's ever talked to somebody in VC knows. They're always overselling what it can do so that they can get money coming to them. And a lot of times, and Howard Hughes talked about this in a book I was reading, where he would say, there were times I just went after a government contract and I built something that would never be able to get off the ground. But all I had to do was show that that was my intention. And so, I mean, I don't even believe half of the stuff that I see when people say, "Oh, technologically, this thing can do that," and everything. And I actually have some investments in some of these companies, but I still don't believe that that they're going to be the end of the world.
Yeah, I the whole Terminator scenario, I don't envision that, and because I know you hear those types of these AIs will become, you know, they'll have emotion and
Skynet.
Yeah, Skynet and Cyberdyne. We have to destroy Cyberdyne. Wasn't it Cyberdyne? Was that the name of the company? Terminator 2?
I think it was Cyberdyne. Yeah, that might be another movie, but I think it was Cyberdyne.
And because you had the hand and the chip, right? Those are the two components. But
everybody's always reverse engineering something.
Well, and that's like one of my favorite movies when I was a kid. I don't know if you and I talked about that last month, but I could still watch that movie today, and it still holds up.
I mean, 1 and 2 are just fantastic. Both of them are really good, and 1 is really underrated. Oh yeah, just an aside. I saw this. I guess this is popular and goes around the internet, but was it Lance Henriksen and Bill Paxton were the only two actors who were killed by a Terminator, Alien, and Predator.
Lance Henriksen wasn't killed by an alien, though, right?
He was cut
in half. He was cut in half, but right. He lived.
Yeah, well, no, he ended up no. When they showed up in Alien 3, when they showed up, he was no longer alive.
Oh yeah, but don't you remember Sigourney? I mean, nitpicking here, but Sigourney Weaver programmed it back in.
All right, now you're nitpicking. Now you're nitpicking.
Yeah. Bill Paxton was killed by a predator.
It was Predator 2, the one in Los Angeles.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. On the subway.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then Lance Henriksen died by Alien versus Predator.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, which was actually not a bad movie.
Yeah. No, Alien versus Predator is a great movie.
Yeah.
Second
one, not so much.
I tell people, not so much. But I tell people if they've never seen Alien versus Predator, oh, that just sounds retarded. I'm like, no, watch it.
It's better than what you would have thought.
Yeah, the whole story surrounding it is a lot better than I thought it was going to be. Because I remember walking in the mall and seeing like an ad for it at the theater when it was coming out, and I'm like, this is retarded. And then like 10 years later, I turn it on and I'm like, oh, wow, this is really entertaining. And the story is a lot better than I thought it was going to be. We're going to talk about movies again, Mike?
Yeah, sure. We want to take the last 5 minutes because we're running out of time here anyway with you. Well, no, and I never thought that the Predators would get bitch slapped around the way they did. I mean, the aliens whooped their ass.
Well, I mean, you had to get the idea that the aliens would. I mean, their blood. I mean, it's how did they kill the aliens? I mean, you had to put them out the lock, and I mean, did that even kill them? No. You mean you really had to just basically destroy them,
obliterate them. Yeah. So coming back, the AI world. I know we're getting running out of time here with you, but the AI world, to me, I think it's going to have an impact on some of the white collar jobs, right? Accounting, developing.
Absolutely. absolutely.
And I don't think it's too far down the road. I mean, depending on who you talk to, who I've talked to, probably who you've spoken with, the idea of a CPA, what kind of value is that going to hold in the next 5 to 10 years?
Yeah. I mean, well, if you get rid of the income tax, yeah, basically now all they're going to be doing is books. And as someone who's done books, who wasn't a CPA, and I've done books for businesses before, it's not hard. I mean, a little bit of training, and anyone with a mathematical and an analytical mind can do it. But yeah, I mean, AI should be able to do all of that. I think there's going to be a lot of uses for AI, and yeah, I think a lot of people are going to be looking for new jobs. How that plays out, I don't know. Way above my pay grade, man. Way above my pay grade.
Medical billing, medical coding, those types of positions. Real estate. I mean, what are you going to need a real estate agent for?
Oh, that's already happening. There's already I know of AI programs for real estate. Yeah.
Well, and what you pay to a real estate agent when you buy a house, probably gonna get some shit for people for this, but
real estate agent. You ever sat at that table? There's 5 people with their hands out there. There's there are a bunch of people getting a piece of the pie when you buy a house. That's for sure.
And that to me is, I mean, and there was a story going around with NAR, and they were having a legal battle, and I haven't heard about it in a while. It was almost like a big tech versus NAR legal battle, and it was like 6 or 8 months ago, and I haven't heard anything since that. But to me that seems imminent. That it's some point, not imminent, but it's heading in that direction to where, you buy a house and you just go through some type of software or AI. What do you need a real estate agent for to walk you through it? To do the paperwork?
Yeah. No, I mean, yeah, we shall see. And I mean, anyone who's sat at that table buying a house knows that you'd rather deal with a computer.
What do you need an appraiser for? What do you need a real estate developer for?
I mean, appraiser. I'm trying to think. I think that appraiser was here for 10 minutes. It's like literally 10 minutes. It's like, come on, what are you doing?
And what would it cost you? $200, $300?
I can't remember, but it was probably 2 or 3. Yeah.
Where could people?
Inspector was more, but wanted a little bit more inspection than others. I think that's one place where where humans are not going to be replaced by AI. You need a good inspector, especially if you're buying an old house. I mean, our house is built in 1940. Yeah, you definitely want people you want a human to come out here and look with their eyes.
And then healthcare. How much of an impact will that have in terms of dealing with some type of AI practitioner? Or...
Well, definitely for coding and for insurance claims. Yeah, I mean, there were already. I remember when my mom was dying, and this was in 2005. They already had robots that were doing surgeries at that time. So I can just imagine how much more advanced they are now.
I had a friend who was a surgeon, and I think it was called a Da Vinci robot, and because the human hand can only bend so much. The Da Vinci was, and this is what you just said, 15 years ago. So I can't even. It had to have evolved even more.
Yeah, I mean, technology should be all about serving humans. That's it. That's what we want technology for, is to make our lives easier and to extend our lives. That's it.
You sound to me, I feel like every time I talk to you have a good optimism about you. I always feel better after you and I talk for an hour and a half.
Well, here's the thing. In 2008, You remember the financial crisis in 2008? How did that affect your life?
Not much.
I mean, the, basically, most of the stuff that we worry about never like materializes. We normally forget about it 2 months ago, 2 months down the line. If someone reminds us that we were worried about that, we may even be like, I don't even remember worrying about that. I mean, I just don't see the point in there's so when I think back of all the things I worried about in life, I mean, so little of it actually materialized to become something that, affected me that I had to deal with. I just think that we have a tendency to believe that things that happen politically, especially at the national level and stuff like that, are going to affect us and are going to affect our lives in significant ways. Most of the time, they don't. Most of the time, they don't.
Yeah, on the state level here, I'm seeing Katie Hobbs come under more scrutiny, and I'm hoping, I'm using the word hope, something materializes with that. Although she's up for
Arizona
re-election
or
next
Ohio?
year, Arizona.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, things can. Yeah, I mean, I guess the one thing that can really, politically, that can really have an effect on people is demographics. I guess that's the one thing that's really important. And at this point, that whole thing we were talking about, Eric Prince, I'd do it in a heartbeat. And Trump was asked about that today at the press conference for the meeting of his board for the cabinet. And they said, "Oh, have you talked to Eric Prince?" He's like, "No, no, no, I haven't." And I'm like, "Well, you also said that you didn't know anything about Project 2025, and so much of Project 2025 is being implemented right now. So I don't know. Let's see what I mean, if I've been following Eric Prince came back on the scene and started doing podcasts and then started promoting stuff about oh God, about a year ago. He started his own podcast off leash, and I've been following him. And I think there's a reason why he's coming back into the public, and he's coming back in the way he is. And he's also talking about like free markets and libertarianism and Bitcoin and things like that. Um, I'm going to be interested to see if Trump says, I haven't spoken to Eric Prince. I'm interested to see if he takes Eric Prince up on his offer, or if that's an offer that was actually floated to him and that he's just putting it out there in the zeitgeist to get people to gauge how people react to that. But yeah, I think the one thing I'm most worried about right now is demographics and immigration. It not only needs to be stopped, but it needs to be reversed. And you know, I know a lot of people who said if Trump only addressed immigration, that would consider that to be a win. And it seems like he's addressing it, but not as fast as a lot of people would like it. And maybe he's seen the complaints, and his people have seen the complaints, and they floated this out there to see how people reacted to it. I told my wife last night, I said, I would love to see Musk do one of his polls. Be like, should we have Eric Prince do this and lay down the whole thing and pay him the 25 billion to accomplish this in by the midterms, 15 million deported, and do a yes or a no, and then just go off of that Vox Populi, Vox Day, and that would be great because the immigration issue probably is the greatest threat right now.
Where can people find you, Pete?
Pete Quiñones show. Check out that's it. You can check that at pq.org. Then you can petesubstack.com and the Old Glory Club. We have a Substack, Old Glory Club, and we live stream every Thursday night at 8 o'clock Eastern on YouTube and on X. We're still on YouTube. It's awesome.
And for people listening, make sure you go on to Pete's Substack and become a paid subscriber and contribute to what he's doing. He's putting out great information. The guy works very, very hard, and I ask that people, my audience, contribute to all the work he's putting in.
I appreciate that, Mike, and right back at you. People, go subscribe to Mike, and make sure to donate to Mike. He has people on that I've never even heard of, and it's always a good conversation. Um, Mike, you may be the you may be approaching Tucker Carlson level with your guests. Of I never know what the fuck you're going to talk about with a guest.
I appreciate that, man. I'm getting a little embarrassed with that compliment, but I don't know. I mean, I'm trying to. I'm not even trying. I'm learning, and that's why I have people like you on. I mean, I'm kidding myself. I can't go toe to toe with you. The amount of books you've read and the history knowledge that you have, I don't have that.
Yeah.
But where do you start?
Yeah.
And I feel like there's a lot of people in that category that they
start
don't.
with the Spanish Civil War. If people want to know where to start with the Spanish Civil War. Buy any book by Stanley Payne and read about the Spanish Civil War. They're going to tell you what you know about the Spanish Civil War is that these evil fascists rised up to destroy a republican government. Oh, you've been lied to. You've been lied to. Go read Payne, and check on, if you go to my podcast and you scroll back and you search, listen to my Spanish Civil War episodes. You'll get an idea of exactly what that was all about, and why a bunch of us believe that if the left or the regime or the progressives, whatever you want to call them, if they don't get destroyed in this country utterly, we could be headed down that road. And we explain why.
Pete, as always, I enjoy our conversations, and look forward to the next one.
Thank you, Mike.
Mic drop.